world changes soon. Can get a doobie on a plane, but there's Uzis in our schools. Every dude who touched a boob or a booty getting me too. What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive, we're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful. Name a thing that you can't do. Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42. Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white.
Welcome to the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show. I am your host, Albert Apache, and as usual, brought to you by Open Source, Self-Defense, Fitness, and Grappling. Alright guys, so we're going to go ahead and get into this episode. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the things you can do to get better at jiu-jitsu faster, sticking with that theme for the last couple of episodes. And then we're going to talk a bit about what's coming up for who's number one, big changes to that jiu-jitsu card. And then we're going to talk some NFL. Really wanted to move on from Tom Brady talk, but golly, these SJWs just will not leave it alone. And then we're going to talk a bit about Dak Prescott and what's going on with him and his future with the Dallas Cowboys. Do have that retraction to make. I will even restate it here. Very, very sorry. I propagated false news. I saw it on Twitter, and obviously you can't believe everything that is tweeted. So yeah, Dak Prescott is not signed with the Dallas Cowboys. And then we're going to talk really quick, do a quick red pill PSA on men. You guys need to start manning up a bit when it comes to drawing lines in the sand. So anyhow, sit back, buckle up. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Please like, subscribe, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. If you don't agree with something I say, let me know. If you do agree, awesome. You just want to make a comment, great. Or you can ask a question. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to figure it out for you, or we can at least discuss it. And that's what I got, guys. So hopefully you enjoy. Let's go ahead and get into the show. Okay, guys, let's go ahead and get into this segment of the show. So we've been talking about this entire month so far. How do you get better at jiu-jitsu faster? And so what we're going to cover today is essentially a little bit more about tactics during class. So I talked about early on, first couple of episodes on this, that you need to be practicing, doing what your instructor is showing you, that you have to show up to class, that you should find a school that has a foundations, fundamentals class, that you should be attending the foundations and fundamentals class. Generally speaking, a lot of foundation and fundamentals classes have little to no sparring. Generally speaking, not all, but a lot. They either have no sparring or they have what we call positional or specific training, positional sparring or specific training. And I think those are fantastic. Now, some schools will not have that. And you might just love your school and you're like, I don't want to leave. I don't want to go find some other place to train. So what about me? I'm at this school. Pretty much it's a throw you to the sharks kind of school. And what do? Or you might go to Foundations Fundamentals and you've had enough classes that you qualify now to go into the sparring class. And you're still thinking, well, how do I use my sparring class to get better at jiu-jitsu as fast as possible? So what your strategy should be is, and I know this sounds, like I said, a lot of the stuff I'm going to say is going to sound extremely common sense. But again, you would be surprised how many people, for it being common sense, just do not do this. You need to use what you're being taught in class. Okay? So let me expound on this idea. If in foundations and fundamentals you've been covering, you know, maintaining the closed guard, all right, then you need to find a way to get to your closed guard and maintain it. Sometimes, during sparring class, uh, your partner, depending on how your instructor approaches sparring, may say, "Hey, you guys do, you guys can do rolls, whatever," and there's no specifics to what you have to do. Many times, your partner may ask, "Hey, do you want to work on anything?" This is where you cannot be shy, right? You have to speak up. You have to say, "Hey, look, I've been working my closed guard. I'm really trying to learn it. If we could start from my closed guard, that would be spectacular." Start from your closed guard, you go from there. Okay. Let's say from closed guard, you've been practicing your scissor sweep. That's what you guys have been practicing, is transitioning from your closed guard into a scissor sweep. And you've been working that in your foundations fundamental class. Now is the time to try it. Okay. Now is the time to try to hit it. Now, here's the thing, guys. You're going to run into resistance, and that's actually what you want, right? You want a partner that resists. So, two things. The very first thing is, as you're trying to do your scissor sweep, you want to try and take a mental note of what your opponent is doing to counter your scissor sweep. What is their first reaction? What is their first counter, right? Are they grabbing a hold of your leg? Are they sitting their weight back? Are they trying to frame away from you? Are they posting out their hand? Are they posting out their foot? And just try to get a feel for what they're doing. Come back, set back up. You come back to your closed guard, you hand fight a little bit, you go back, you try to hit it again, and you make note of what they do to stop it every single time. Mental note. Try to take a mental note of what they're doing. And that's it. Okay? That's it. That's all you have to do. That would be the first thing that you want to do. The next thing you want to do, guys, and this is the important part. When I say focus on your scissor sweep, for instance, or whatever the thing is that you're being taught in class, there are many pieces to the scissor sweep, right? There is what guard you're in. For instance, generally speaking, you're in a closed guard position or type of position when you go for a scissor sweep. There's, the shifting of your hips and hipping, getting to one hip so that you can get that knee across. There's your grips. There's the action of loading the opponent up onto that knee. And then, of course, there's the finish of, sweeping and turning your hips over and coming up on top. So what you want to do is focus on one thing. Generally, it's something that is at the beginning of the technique. So let's say, for instance, your grips. So not only are you going to focus on the one thing, which is the scissor sweep, the one technique, but you're going to focus on one thing in that technique. And you're going to ensure that that part of it, that's what you're playing with, that's what you're exploring, that's what your main attention is on. When I grab the collar, or when I grab the lapel, or when I, use a collar tie on the head, when I grab the sleeve, a pistol grip, when I roll over into like the C grip or the 4-finger grip, whatever you call it, does it work better? Or if I grab, the wrist, or do I use a frying pan type grip? more of like a judo style grip. What grip works best for me in this situation? Where do I feel like I have the control of my grips, and why do I like this position? Why do I like these grips? Okay. This is super important, guys. These are the little things where you're going to start to explore and you're going to start to feel. Once you've, really started to understand the grips, then you start to move on to the next pieces. I'm not saying you don't go through the rest of the technique. I'm saying you don't try to focus on the technique with a broad, wide lens. You want to try and focus on the technique on small details. What this is going to do, okay, is it's going to start to open your mind to concepts and ideas. Now, a lot of the instructionals out there and things like that, you'll start to see that more and more the upper competitors, black belts and above, will talk about how they don't really see jiu-jitsu as techniques anymore. They're not really techniques collectors. They see it as positions and ideas and body movement, and this is why they can hit sweeps, and this is why they go from one position to another position. That's not really a quote-unquote documented technique or documented position, right? It's some kind of hybrid kind of position or hybrid type of sweep or some kind of submission that is like, not exactly the classic way that you would do an armbar. And the reason why this is all figured out, right, is due to the fact that they've explored all these little concepts and all these little ideas, and so they realize where weight distribution is on the human body. They understand, on a fundamental, on a very concept and in theory idea, where the pressure is on the human body and the biomechanics of the human body. And so this is why they're able to do those things. Now, a lot of people will try to tell you to jump up to that immediately, into that type of learning, and that it'll accelerate your learning. I absolutely agree that it will accelerate your learning. That's why sparring makes you a better competitor faster than not sparring, right? That being said, it's a very uncomfortable place. Okay, it's a very uncomfortable mode of learning for adults. Kids tend to take to it a little bit easier. Adults tend not to, just because we've already developed some sense of arrogance or some sense of confidence, I guess you could say, and it kind of shatters our confidence. It kind of shatters our pride when we're getting smashed. But this is why I think you should take a linear approach until you start to feel somewhat comfortable. And then you can start to play with the more randomized style of learning. I think that the linear is there to really boost your confidence, and then the randomized is really where you put together, where you actually learn how to do jiu-jitsu. So, but focus on small things, guys. So when you're trying to get better at jiu-jitsu, when you go into sparring class, you should be trying to use the things that you're being taught in class, whatever technique it is. And then number two, and this is all for the beginner, guys, right? And then number two, you want to focus on one thing within that technique. And that's the thing that you really want to vary and play with. You don't really want to, and to focus on, you don't want to try to change a zillion things within your technique, right? You don't want to play with where your hips are at. You don't want to play with where your grips are at. You don't want to play with where your feet are at. You don't want to play with all of those things simultaneously as a white belt, as a beginner. You don't want to play with those things simultaneously because it's going to be a lot for you to keep track of in a very hectic situation. But if you focus on, for instance, where are my grips? What grips am I using every single time? And did I like this grip over that grip? Oh, I noticed this grip was a little bit different when I grabbed it here. I feel like I had more control or less control. I feel like I got closer to getting the sweep with this grip. Oh, let me go back to it. Let me see if that works again, right? Those are the things that are going to help you get better. And as you notice what people do to counter, you're going to start to find a pattern. You're going to start to find that, hey, a lot of times, most times, when I'm rolling with people, this is one of the most common things that people do to counter my scissor sweep. And then you're starting to build the road to understanding, right? Push, pull, action, reaction, which then allows you to start to build upon the assumption of where you think somebody's going to go. I hope that makes sense, guys. And that's what I got for you. And we're going to recap probably next episode on all the things you should be doing. We'll recap really quick over the school, foundation and fundamental program, talk about going to class and drilling, and then of course what you should be focusing on once you get into sparring class as far as the one thing. All right, guys, that's what I got for you, and we'll catch you next time. So let's go ahead and get into the next topic. All right, guys, welcome. Let's go ahead and get into this segment. You know, I really didn't want to do another segment on Tom Brady, given that, you know, it's been a week since the Super Bowl. However, that being said, this whole entire past week after the Super Bowl, all the wokeness around Tom Brady, everything from Matthew trying to insinuate that Tom used the N-word or some type of racial slur towards him, and then taking down the tweet in a very cowardly fashion, given that, you know, we come to find out that Tom was actually mic'd up the entire game. So Matthew must have heard that and decided, hey, maybe I better take this back because I'm going to be outed as being essentially a liar. And then we've heard ridiculous comments within the Twitterverse, the Twitter mob, that somehow Tom Brady now is racist, that it feels racist that he won the Super Bowl during Black History Month, as if the other 6 Super Bowls he won were in a different month, and he was never accused of being a racist then. Not to mention, they only seem to care about the fact that Tom Brady is white and that Patrick Mahomes is black. And, you know, I don't understand why Patrick Mahomes is considered black only, like as if his, what is it, his mom? I know one of his parents is white, so does it even matter? But even if that was the case, even if you consider Patrick Mahomes to be black, a black American, what about the rest of the team? What about all the Bucks that are black? What about all the coaching staff for the Bucks that is black? What, they weren't supposed to get a Super Bowl victory because of Tom Brady's whiteness? It's the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. And then you have some schmuck, I don't even want to mention him by name, but he's hated Tom Brady for at least a decade now, if not 2 decades. The entire time that Tom Brady has essentially been in the league. And, you know, he just can't get over the fact that Tom Brady has proven him wrong time and time and time and time and time and time and time again. Okay. And he writes some kind of article talking about how, talking about Brady as the GOAT, not just in the NFL, but, the greatest team sports athlete, having surpassed Michael Jordan with this particular win, that somehow that sounds like great white hope talk. Okay. This is utterly ridiculous. And I'm going to explain to you exactly why so many of these people hate Tom Brady. First, we're going to talk about the Twitter mob and all the woke people out there. First and foremost, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, you name it. If you are a professional sport, I'm going to tell you right now the reason why you are going broke. Okay, I'm going to I'm going to explain to you the reason why you're going broke. The reality is the Twitter mob, the outrage mob, okay, they are just a loud minority. Okay? The vast majority of Americans don't really give a shit about half the things that they get raged about. Okay? Tom Brady winning a seventh Super Bowl, the general public doesn't think it's racist that he won a Super Bowl. Okay? And here, let's go a little bit further into the Twitter mob. The other part about most of the Twitter mob, most of the woke Twitter mob, okay, are people that do not buy your products. Okay? And this is a warning to you athletes that actually play in these professional leagues as well. While you're aligning with them, La Woke James, okay, well, you think it's all good and dandy to align with them. And of course, I understand why you do it, because you have a vested interest. You have a financial interest to be aligned with the woke Twitter mob, and do the bidding of, the communist government of China, because, well, China is paying a ton of your paycheck and you're all about your money. Because if you weren't, you could totally do so many things on your own, but, that's neither here nor there. All that being said, while you're looking the other way, well, kids and women are put into slave labor to make your sneaker, to put even more millions into your pocket and steal more wealth from the rest of the world, and steal these people's labor. Well, you're getting rich. Okay, here's the reality: the vast majority of those in the Twitter mob that you're aligning yourself with, all of you sports athletes, okay, all you professional athletes, you want to align yourself with the wokeness crowd. Well, short term, you believe that this is going to be good for your brand, this is going to be good for your paycheck. You're missing the forest for the trees. Here's the reality, guys. Most of those people don't like you. They've never liked you. And when I say that, I don't mean like you specifically as an individual. I mean athletics, sports. These are the people who have been ranting and raving for decades that athletes are overpaid. Okay? And that their money should be taken away and given to important jobs like teachers. Okay? This is just the reality. This is just the reality. Most of them, a good chunk of them, are the kids who didn't like you in high school either, right? They were the drama kid, they were the band geek kid that didn't like you, that didn't even know you really personally, because in all reality, here's the reality. I know because, I was a band kid that hung out with some, football players, that hung out with a few basketball players, was friendly with them, things like that. Not that I was ever part of that crowd, per se, the jock crowd, but I was friendly with them. I didn't have an issue with them. I didn't have an issue with the quote-unquote preppy kids, okay? But I played in the band for a couple years, things of that nature. Here's the thing. having been on the inside there, having seen the inner workings of both sides, here's the reality. The reality is the same way that people talk about the shallowness of the jocks and the shallowness of the preppy kids and the rich kids and the popular kids, the reality is there was plenty of shallowness on the other side. And that a vast majority of the kids that were not popular in high school were not popular for their own insecurities, right? I mean, that's just the reality of it. And those of us who, can sit back and be introspective in a very honest way, can look and say, yeah, that was the case. There were some kids that maybe were in the band or in drama class or whatever the other typical non-popular things used to be. You can look back and see that these kids were smart, attractive, funny, talented, yet they did not want to come out of their shell for their own reasons, for their own insecurities. And herein lies why they hate Tom Brady. This is the real reason. I mean, let's just take a look. I mean, look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady is essentially the antithesis, or, the direct, let me be more specific, or let me flip this on its head. Tom Brady is the direct rebuttal. That's better. He is the direct rebuttal of their argument that, oh, well, I wasn't a popular kid. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I wasn't born with all the opportunity. It's because opportunity wasn't equal. You look at Tom Brady, okay? He went to an okay high school. He wasn't highly recruited, but he made it into Michigan. In the NFL draft, he was drafted in the 6th round, 199 overall pick. Okay, if you've seen the pictures of Tom Brady prior to the combine, and if you've watched the videos of Tom Brady run his 40, if you read the analysis of Tom Brady going into the draft, the reality is that Tom Brady was not given an opportunity. He was not given a chance. He was not given hope. And he is a direct rebuttal to all of their victimhood mentality, because Tom Brady essentially rebukes all of that nonsense. And he is the epitome of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Work hard and get it done. Now, why do so many writers dislike him? Well, here's the reality. So a lot of these writers do not like him because, well, what do you hear a lot about Tom Brady when you hear people talk? Well, he's really talented, or he's really good, he's a hard worker. I wouldn't say he's the greatest, quote-unquote, athlete. So what they're saying is he's not the biggest, he's not the strongest, he's not the tallest, he's not the fastest, he's not the quickest. If you know anything about any of the writers in the sports world, a huge portion of them played sports at some level, generally speaking, at least at the collegiate level. So for them, there's a certain irk that has to be there, right? That they know that they were more, quote unquote, athletically gifted than Tom Brady. Yet, somehow, Tom found a way to milk the talents he did have to becoming the GOAT. And it irks them. That's the reality. It's just flat out jealousy. It's flat out jealousy. And the same could be said for a ton of the athletes that played with Tom Brady or competed against Tom Brady. Just for a quick understanding of what I mean, let's take a quick look at the 2000 draft. These are some of the notable people who were drafted in 2000 that are no longer playing, that Tom Brady has outlasted, but were drafted before Tom Brady. Sean Alexander, Brian Urlacher, Sebastian Janikowski, Chad Pennington, Mark Bulger. These are some very notable names within the NFL that had very good careers, that were all supposed to be better, more talented, have better athletic ability, just overall be better prospects than Tom Brady. Let's continue on. Let's jump to 2001. In 2001, we have Michael Vick. Michael Vick is often looked at as and considered by some the most athletic quarterback to ever play the position. There was times I remember playing Madden as a young man where everybody wanted to play as the Falcons or the Eagles because they wanted to play as Michael Vick, because it was like having a cheat code, right? And of course, you could still use cheat codes. But, it was fun time pretending you were Michael Vick on that field and just joystick ripping up Achilles, juking players out of their sneaks on the video game playing as Michael Vick. But he's outlasted Michael Vick and has had a much more successful, accolade-filled career than Michael Vick. Now, we may argue that part of the reason why is, of course, because of Michael Vick's run-ins with the law, but that's neither here nor there. Maybe he could have had a better career. Who knows? We got Matt Light, Santana Moss, TJ Houshmandzadeh, Drew Brees, LaDainian Tomlinson, Reggie Wayne. Okay? These are very prolific offensive weapons who, if you asked most people, by far are better athletes than Tom Brady, yet Tom has found a way to outlast all of them. In regards to LaDainian Tomlinson and specifically Reggie Wayne, go up head-to-head against the teams that they have represented and win. And now, of course, with Drew Brees and win, and TJ Houshmandzadeh and win. Let's jump to 2005. 2005, Alex Smith. Alex Smith is technically still in the league. Who knows for how much longer after that injury. Super sad to see that happen. But, hopefully, he ends his career how he would like to. We got Adam Pac-Man Jones, DeMarcus Ware, Sean Merriman, Aaron Rodgers, Roddy White, Heath Miller, Vincent Jackson, Frank Gore, Justin Tuck, Richie Incognito, Darren Sproles, Ryan Fitzpatrick. These are all players that were rated better or considered better than Tom Brady when they came into the draft. I'm not saying that these players were considered better than Tom Brady when they came in. I mean, when Tom Brady was drafted, in comparison to their draft position, these were players that were all considered to be better athletes, better players, have bigger upside than Tom Brady. Yet somehow Tom Brady has had a better career. You have to jump all the way up into 2010 to start talking about players that may have as notable a career as Tom Brady. There we had in Ndamukong Suh, Gerald McCoy, Jason Pierre-Paul, Ronald Jones Jr., Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, LaDainian Tomlinson, Reggie Wayne, Alex Smith, 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 Ale a ton of offensive weapons: Eric Berry, Joe Hayden, Earl Thomas, Devin McCourty, Gronk, Jimmy Graham. I mean, just a ridiculous amount of players that Tom Brady has seen come and go out of the league from team to team. Well, Tom just keeps continuing to do what Tom does. It's ridiculous that Tom Brady is being accused of being a racist, that he is somehow diminished simply because he, at one time, had a red hat in his locker. A red hat at a time when everybody thought it was a joke. Better wake up, guys. Better wake up, NFL, NBA, all the rest of you professional sports. Wake up. Keep following the Twitter mob. This Super Bowl was down in ratings, and that was with a tremendous story of two quarterbacks, one who was and is the current GOAT, and another one looking to take that title for the NFL, and you still had a huge ratings drop. Bad place to be, guys. Bad place to be. Better know your audience. Better know who you're selling to. Guess what? MAGA hat wearers, people who are not left of Bernie Sanders, people who are right of Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard type people, guess what? We buy tickets, we watch sports, we buy sneakers too. Jimmy Dore types, they buy sneakers too. Tim Pool types, they buy sneakers too. Dave Rubin types, they buy sneakers too. You better wake up, professional sports, and particularly athletes. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into this segment. So, got a retraction, got a big mistake to correct, and an apology. So, correction and mistake to correct is essentially the Dallas Cowboys did not, I repeat, they did not sign Dak Prescott, as I had reported a bit ago and commented on. And so that apology goes to Dak Prescott as well as to the Dallas Cowboys. And in particular, I want to say sorry to Jerry Jones and those that manage the Cowboys, because I did believe it was a mistake, and so I was quite harsh on them, and so apologies to them. In this particular instance, I have to say I really do believe that the Dallas Cowboys do have all the leverage. I haven't really changed my stance on that, and I believe that the Dallas Cowboys have all of the leverage for a number of reasons. One of the first reasons why I believe that the Dallas Cowboys have all of the leverage is that Dak Prescott is asking for a plus type quarterback contract, and he is a B plus at best quarterback, and that's what Dak has shown. Now, does he have the potential to be an A plus quarterback? Yeah, I think he does. I think he has that in him. That being said, he isn't an A plus quarterback, and I don't think that there is a team out there, should the Cowboys allow him to test the free agent market, there is not a team out there that is going to pay him A plus quarterback money, and that's just the long and short of it. Dak, in and of himself, is not going to put seats in the stands for a franchise, and that's just the reality. I don't really know what else there is to say about that particular part of the equation. Next, when you factor in the idea that Dak is coming off of a serious injury, that also points to the fact that other teams are going to be cautious about signing Dak Prescott to a long-term deal. Okay? And Dak has to be aware of this. I mean, The Cowboys have all of the leverage here. What may end up happening with Dak, and I actually think this is the best case scenario for the Dallas Cowboys, is if Dak is not willing to sign a more salary cap friendly deal, then it's probably in the best interest of the Dallas Cowboys to franchise tag him and trade him. And the reason why I say that is this goes back to why other teams are not going to pay Dak. Okay, initially, when you look at some of the teams that are having quarterback problems that had paid their quarterbacks well, you look at the Eagles and Carson Wentz, you look at the Houston Texans and Deshaun Watson, you look at the Los Angeles Rams and Jared Goff, and you look at the Seahawks and Russell Wilson. All of these teams committed to their quarterbacks long term with very lucrative contracts, and now there is either turmoil with those particular quarterbacks where they're trying to get rid of the quarterback, or they in fact have gotten rid of the quarterback, or the quarterback is wanting a trade or is unhappy with the situation. And of course, the quarterback themselves is not owning any of the responsibility that they're taking up a quarter of the cap space for their team, and this is probably why they don't have the weapons or the protection that they would like to have. I mean, that's just the reality. This is not the NBA. This is not the MLB, right? This is the NFL. Okay, there is a strong, strict salary cap. There's a hard cap to salaries, and it makes it hard for a team to put talent around you. Now, in the past, right, teams could sign these contracts, pay upfront initially, kind of taper off a little bit as time went on, and be confident that the salary cap was going to continue to increase in the next preceding years, so that it wasn't percentage-wise as big, and they would grow into making a run with their star quarterback. That being said, this next year will be, I think, the first time, at least in the last 5 to 10 years, if not since the inception of the salary cap, that the salary cap will contract. Meaning that if you were to sign Dak Prescott to a long, large-term deal that would be similar to a Carson Wentz or similar to a Goff, Wilson, Deshaun Watson, it will quite literally have a bigger percentage impact on your team than it would have this previous season. So because of that, I do not see any team offering Dak Prescott a better contract than what the Cowboys can offer him. And that means that it is not a good situation for Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott and his agent really need to start thinking about what that means for them, and that he probably is going to have to settle for a better contract. This puts all the leverage in the hands of the Dallas Cowboys and the Dallas Cowboy organization. Further, when you look at Dak Prescott, you have to understand that as a player, okay, not as a human being, not as a person. I think as a human being, as a person, Dak Prescott is fantabulous. He's a great guy. But as a player, Dak Prescott is not a value-added player. He is not a force multiplier in the way that, let's say, for instance, a Tom Brady is. Okay, I know I'm taking the most extreme examples, but I think that that's the easiest way to illustrate my point. Dak, okay, he's a force addition, not a multiplier. What I mean by that is he will make a good set of wide receivers better, a good set of running backs better. He adds a dimension. He adds to your offensive firepower, but he doesn't multiply it. He is not somebody that can take a plethora of different wide receivers and anybody you plug in, he's going to make a better wide receiver, right? Dak so far has shown he needs very talented guys around him in order to be that B plus best version of himself. So if Dak were to go to another team, is he a value added to another team? I don't think so. I don't think that him in of himself does not put butts in the seats at other games. And so I just think that Dak needs to realize that, this is where he's at in his career, and that in fact he is probably best served by signing a shorter term deal that is cap friendly, or going a longer term deal that is cap friendly, because that's what's going to get him paid in the most fair way possible. And that just is what it is, guys. So talking about quarterbacks, excuse me, that brings us into all the shenanigans that are going on in the NFL. We, of course, have the Deshaun Watson fiasco going on in Houston. Deshaun wants out. I think that it would be a mistake for the Houston Texans to let go of Deshaun Watson, unless they're getting some kind of miraculous set of draft picks in return and something that's somewhat marketable talent to put on the field. I think that they would be making a disastrous choice. And I just say that because here's the thing, Deshaun Watson was okay with being in Houston. He signed the contract 8 months ago, a long-term contract for Houston. This was after they let go of their most talented wide receiver, right? Hopkins. So Deshaun knew what he was getting into. And as an NFL franchise, if the Texans start going down this road of allowing these big name NFL stars, even quarterbacks, demanding trades after they've paid them and after they've given them the big guaranteed contract and after it's going to hurt their salary cap, that is just a recipe for absolute disaster. Now, do I think that the Houston Texans are the best run organization in the league? Absolutely not. There is definitely room for improvement. But either way, I just don't think they should. But you have the Deshaun Watsons in the mix. He's demanding a trade. Then, of course, you have all the issues going on in Philadelphia and Carson Wentz. And they want to move off of Carson Wentz, right? And so then that brings us all the way back around to Dak Prescott. And where could he possibly end up? We have rumors now that quite possibly the Dallas Cowboys may be looking to trade for Russell Wilson, because now we hear Russell Wilson is not happy in Seattle. Again, another quarterback that signed a major deal, a lot of money, and now he's not happy with the situation of his team. I wonder why, guys. I wonder why. Colin Cowherd, has done the numbers breakdown on this a bunch of times, and that shows that when you overly commit to a star player, usually it's the quarterback. As an NFL franchise, when you financially overcommit to a star player, you cripple your team's future short term. And you really are hoping that they are very good at keeping longevity in their career to get to another set of, playoff runs. A lot like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, right? They luckily for both Green Bay and the Patriots, both of those guys were very good about taking care of their bodies, taking care of themselves, and continuing to perform at a high level so that as they went through the different years of reloading and putting in all kinds of other pieces, they still could make playoff runs, right? So what does that mean, guys? Who else is in the scenario Okay, this is why I also believe that the Dallas Cowboys are completely in the driver's seat when it comes to the Dak Prescott issue. We've already talked about you have Deshaun Watson, you have Carson Wentz, you have Russell Wilson, and now the talk is that Sam Darnold may or may not be in the mix to get traded or be on the chopping block because the Jets may be looking to upgrade at the quarterback position if they have the opportunity. So there are a plethora of quarterbacks that are out there right now that are available. We also see that we've been hearing talks about Rivers possibly being yet another quarterback that is on the chopping block or in the trade rumors that would be willing to move. Mitchell Trubisky may or may not stay in Chicago. Now, I don't see Mitchell Trubisky as an upgrade from Dak, but I do believe that Mitchell Trubisky is relatively a lateral move. I think that pretty much you are going maybe from a B plus to a B quarterback, right? I think that Dak is slightly better than Mitchell Trubisky, but not so far much better that I think he commands, so much more money. I think that Mitchell Trubisky would much more be willing to settle for a smaller contract. Also, when it comes to Mitchell Trubisky, you have to, if you're being any kind of objective, you have to agree that Mitchell Trubisky, Dak Prescott, when you look at the talent that's been surrounding both of these guys, the talent level surrounding Dak has been much, much higher level on the offensive side of the ball than what has surrounded Mitchell Trubisky. That's just facts, guys. That is just facts. So, that also continues putting the leverage on the side of the Dallas Cowboys. And then lastly, you're hearing rumors about Jimmy Garoppolo possibly being on the chopping block. Somebody that they may want to be bringing in a Deshaun Watson into San Francisco, in which case that would mean that Jimmy Garoppolo would be on the chopping block or be going back to the Patriots, New England. If Jimmy Garoppolo became available, I can't believe that would not hurt Dak's value. I personally think that Jimmy Garoppolo is a A- quarterback. He's he's a great, he's that half grade above Dak Prescott. I really believe that. I don't think that. Here's the difference between Garoppolo and Dak while they both are coming off of an injury. I feel that Garoppolo, his game is not predicated on being excessively mobile. I think that his game is predicated on, being able to scramble and being able to run when he has to, but primarily sitting in the pocket and picking you apart with precision passing. Okay, short routes, taking his shots deep when he wants to. Okay, that's Garoppolo's game. I think one of the reasons why Dak's injury hurts him so bad is the fact that part of Dak's game involves him scrambling. That's how he adds that extra dimension to his game. Also with Dak, you saw him get hurt on a play where he was trying to go get a first down, trying to, he was 100% healthy. When you saw Garoppolo go down the second time in the season, this past season, it was after the Niners had been trying to rush him back onto the field, rush him back onto the field. And that's why you saw a lack of production out of him, because the 49ers were putting a pressure on Garoppolo to come back. So if Garoppolo became available, you could see that happen. Deshaun Watson, Garoppolo, we've been talking about this. There's Dak all in the mix. And then let's not forget about the fact that Chucky, the rumors about him and his quarterback continue to swirl. Carr is continuously coming up. Is, Chucky happy with Carr, or is he not? Is he looking to replace him? Okay. These are all huge question marks in the NFL. Huge question marks. This isn't even considering the top 5 quarterbacks that are coming in to the draft. And what I can say is that with the way that owners and head coaches have started to adopt the idea of making offenses more friendly to young rookie quarterbacks, many of those quarterbacks could come in and make huge impacts immediately. So, with all of the different quarterback talent that could be on the move, I mean, just seriously, you're telling me if the Raiders went out and found a way, if John Gruden, the Chuck Meister, could find a way to trade for Deshaun Watson and Carr became available, that doesn't set into motion a bunch of dominoes to maybe land Carr in Dallas, or Carr going to across the bay to San Francisco, and then Garoppolo becomes available. We know Wentz is already on the chopping block. I mean, maybe Carr goes to Seattle but pushes Russell out. Russell, maybe there's a three-way trade with some other teams. Maybe somebody moves up in the draft and then lets go of their quarterback. There are so many things that are happening. And you know what, guys? All in all, you got to go back to TB12 and thank TB12 for all of this drama, all of this soap opera stuff that's going on, giving you drama. Because essentially what Tampa Bay did when Tom Brady had the stones to leave Belichick and New England, and Tampa had the stones enough to sign him, essentially what that's done is it sent the signal throughout the NFL that if you feel like your offense is a quarterback away, if you feel your team is a quarterback away, you need to shoot your shot this season, because you might not get another season. All right? You may not get another season. The NFL, a lot of times we hear it stands for the No Fun League. Well, you know what it really does stand for? It stands for the Not For Long League. Right? Not for long. The windows in the NFL are not for long. That's one of the reasons why Tom Brady's story, his greatness, is so amazing. Okay? But I digress back to the topic at hand, the quarterback carousel. All of these things. So Dak and his guys really need to start thinking about whether or not it is worth it. I mean, you have a ton of quarterbacks that teams are at least listening to offers when it comes to moving the quarterback. That doesn't mean as a fan I want any of those guys more than I want Dak Prescott. Okay? There are some of those guys I did mention. I'll hold that back for a minute. Oh, shoot. Let me just say it. If Garoppolo or Watson was coming to Dallas, I would take him over Dak. Would I be thrilled with a trade for Wentz? No. But is it a downgrade? I don't think so. Would I be happy to have Russell Wilson? Absolutely not. I don't like the guy. I don't like him as a person and his personality. I think he's a bit of a virtue signaling, disingenuous kind of guy. But is he a talented quarterback? Absolutely. Would he be an upgrade at quarterback? Probably. I mean, if we're being honest. Was he my first choice? No, he's not my first choice. But hey, Sam Darnold, is he an upgrade? I don't know. That's kind of yet to be seen. But is the upside, is the potential there? Absolutely, the upside and potential is there. I would not be devastated if the Dallas Cowboys found a way to bring in Sam Darnold. If Derek Carr became available through the shuffling of Deshaun Watson around, and we got Carr, would I be upset about that? Absolutely not. Is he an upgrade? I'm not 100% sure, but I know he's not very much of a downgrade. I'd say you're at least going lateral move there. So I really feel like the Dak Prescott team needs to huddle up, realize that they lost this round, and go out there, sign that contract, and come back next round and try and get a Super Bowl, and then hopefully demand more money then. I think that's really the play for Dak Prescott. and his team. Now, I might be mistaken because I'm a Cowboy fan and maybe I just care about the franchise, and that's a possibility. But at least I'm being honest about it, guys. Okay, man, let's go ahead and move on and let's find the next topic. All right, fellas, let's go ahead and wrap up the show with this last segment. Okay, guys, so many times, um, you know, I hear this is a red pill moment, and, some of you all might, get upset that I'm calling y'all out, but it's got to be done, fellas. It just has to be done. And this is something that, these boundaries to protect your marriage, this would also apply to any other relationship. You don't necessarily have to be married. You could be dating, whatever the case may be. Um, you know, you need to put up these boundaries to protect your marriage. And in terms of you training jujitsu, you training to be physically fit, this is one of those boundaries that you need to draw. And to be quite honest, you're. I really do think that it isn't. It's somewhat emasculating yourself when you put the blame on your spouse as to why you cannot train. Recently had somebody reach out to our academy and wanted to come in and train, schedule the time, this, that, and the other, and, calls back and says, day of the appointment to come in and do his free class and all that good stuff, calls back and he says, um, I'm not going to be able to make it uh, because, uh, you know, I, we just had a baby. Me and my wife just had a baby, like, 8 months ago, and she would really like me to focus on that right now. So I don't know, maybe in a couple of months or something. Um, you know, I was pretty frank with this guy, and I said, well, whenever you're ready to train, you know, keep us in mind. Thanks for giving us a call. Thanks for letting us know you're not going to make it. All that being said, you know, just so you're clear, I'm 6 kids in. You're never going to have the time. You'll always find a reason not to. If the reason why you're not doing this is because of your kids, it doesn't matter if you have one more kid or no more kids, you will always find a reason not to train. Um, so you might want to consider that. But thank you for calling us. Now, was that kind of a douche move on my part? Maybe. I don't think so. I think that I was being very honest, forthright, and you know, doing something that was in his best interest. And I think too much we have grown a culture of men that are happy to shun their responsibilities, shun their manhood, that they're willing to be subjected to whatever decisions are being made for them, just so that they can quote unquote be liked, by their spouse or their significant other. Um, you know, you that's not a way to live life. Okay, you and your spouse should have very good, clear boundaries. Um, and if that leads to you and your spouse or you and your significant other not being together, then that probably means that there was something wrong with that relationship to begin with, if we're just being 100% honest. um, you know you need to man up and make the time that you need to make the time for yourself as a man. And you know, and I've talked about this in other shows, and this, the long and short of it is that 8 out of 10 times that I've seen people quit jujitsu, generally it's men. And when you look at all the people who quit jujitsu, most of them are men. Okay, I get that. But when you take all the men and women that quit jujitsu together and you talk to them, 8 out of 10 times for the men, the reason they're quitting jujitsu is because of their spouse. Because their spouse asked them to. Because they're getting pressure that, you spend too much time doing jujitsu. You spend too much time doing jujitsu. Women who quit jujitsu tend not to. Very rarely do they ever say, well, my boyfriend doesn't want me to do jujitsu, or my husband doesn't want me to do jujitsu. Very rarely do you get that response. Usually, something else came up in their life, and for whatever reason, they felt the stress that they needed to drop jujitsu. Very rarely is it ever even a money issue that people cannot train jujitsu. It's an excuse. It's one of the excuses they give. But usually it comes down to your significant other, especially for adults. So guys, especially now in this post-pandemic world, you have to draw a line. If you feel like you need to train jujitsu, fellas, you need to train jujitsu. You think you're protecting her, you think you're going to make her happy, you're really not, okay? I know she thinks that it's going to make her happy too, but it's not. All it's going to do is build resentment. All it's going to do is stifle your growth. All it's going to do is to make things, contentious. Whether or not you think so, it does diminish your value and your respect in her eyes. She might not even realize it, and she might not even acknowledge it. But if she can, quote unquote, nag you into doing things or not doing things, trust me, she's losing respect for you. And that's not good for your marriage. And that's why these boundaries need to be put up. And, I just felt like, it had to be said. This was, like I said, getting this call from this guy about jiu-jitsu and setting everything up. And it's probably been about the fourth or fifth conversation I've had with a male in the last couple of weeks with this same kind of theme, and I just felt like it obviously needed to be addressed. So, guys, and of course that means that your spouse puts up their boundaries too, right? If she has her things that she does, she goes to the gym, whatever the case may be, or if she rolls jiu-jitsu as well. But it really is disheartening to watch men, continue to just kind of give up their manhood and just be like, okay, honey, whatever you say, happy wife, happy life. Really, that's the most untrue statement I've ever heard in my life. Okay, that's not what makes a happy life. Chasing your wife's happiness for her will never make her happy. Just so you know. All right, guys, that's all I got for this show. We are going to wrap it up. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. If you disagree with anything, comment down below. If you have questions, comment down below. I might not know the answers, but it'll be a good time talking about what could be the answers. I try to reply to everybody, so like I said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, shoot, hit the dislike button. It doesn't matter. And comment down below, okay, guys? All right, man. That's all we got. Thank you very much for listening to the Red Pill Sports and Entertainment Show. Remember, be practical, be purposeful, get there with a purpose, guys.
What you expect from the kids who went to Hooters after school? We're all triggered and defensive, we're all racist and we're sexist. We all grew up watching South Park. How are we offended? Now being fat is beautiful? Name a thing that you can't do? Jumping jacks, run a mile, live past 42? Man, it used to be cool to just flip a bird to the system, and now it's trendy to be triggered and pretend you're a victim. It's my race, it's my weight, it's because I'm a Christian. I hate the internet and anyone who has an opinion. And everybody angry if you say white. Okay, fine. Pass me the brush and I'll paint my face to the shades right. Let's talk about abortion. Sorry, tell me how this works. Bacteria is life on Mars, but a heartbeat isn't life on Earth? Weird. You're so stupid.